identify themselves. If you wish to, you are also will take the opportunity to go around the perimeter, which you just say who you are, what town you're from. And it's just that way, as the meeting progresses, since there's no video, if someone hears something, they can start to put a name to the voice they heard. So you'll hear how that starts off when we get underway. Good evening. This evening is May 25th. It is about approximately 7 p.m. This is the policy committee for the Council Rock School Board. I'm Gerald Greff. I'm the committee chair. We'll go around the room and do quick introductions and take attendance that way. Then we'll begin over here with Mr. Tate.
Ed Tate, School Board.
Wendy Thomas, School Board.
Mike Thorward, School Board.
Andy Block, School Board.
Kyle McKessie, School Board.
Robert Frazier, Superintendent.
Denise Brooks, School Board.
Chuck Lambert, Director, Special Services.
Bobby Township. Alexander Weissman, Newtown Township.
Kathy Leonardo, Washington, Newtown Township. Lori Persich, Northampton Township.
Tanya Turner, Northampton Township.
Margaret Joy, Sierra, North student.
Gary Canadian, teacher.
Very good. Just a brief opening comment. There is an item listed here as 006 meetings. That was a topic which had involved some discussion with Rob Cox, our board solicitor. Rob is not here this evening, and so we're going to defer that topic for this evening. The second thing I want to say by way of introduction was, I know there was some commentary in the community around some other policies that had originally been proposed to be discussed tonight, including 103, 103.1, 104, and potentially something regarding transgender policy. Those items have been referred to our solicitor for review. The solicitor who specializes in those aspects of education law has been away and is not available this evening. And for that reason, those items are not on the agenda this evening. They will be revisited or visited at a subsequent meeting. I know that there was a notice sent around to certain people regarding that. I have sent a note to the person who sent that notice. If they had called, we would have advised them why, and those were not on the agenda this evening. But that person who has been in touch with us before and has attended our meeting before chose not to contact us proactively about that. Dr. Frazier, I believe, was in touch with that person yesterday as well, who had the opportunity then to advise his mailing list. I can't speak for if that has occurred or not. This evening's agenda predominantly focuses on items which are of particular interest around students with special needs and their families. And for that reason, we've invited Dr. Charles Lambert, who's our Director of Special Education, to lead us through these policies this evening. And with that, I'll invite Dr. Lambert to begin this discussion with student wellness, item 24, policy 246.
Student wellness is a required policy that deals with matters of primarily nutrition, but also physical education and overall wellness of students. We're required to revise it every, I believe, 3 years, which is why it's before us now. And it's pretty standard stuff. The only thing that I will say that has come up as an issue, there is a caveat in here about not encouraging food at parties in schools because of the students that we have that have allergies and the risks involved in those students eating something that they should not eat. I understand there was a committee meeting, Dr. Fraser, I don't know what it's called, that deals with the food services in the district.
Yes, food advisory.
Yesterday, and there was discussion that we should not just discourage it, but ban it altogether. We have not had conversations with a wider group of people that I don't feel comfortable going in that direction at this time, but this policy does indeed discourage that.
The only thing I point out in this is that this wellness committee is, in this policy, said to be appointed by the board. And I don't know, as I look through this or as I recall my experience with the board, that the board has ever explicitly made that appointment or those appointments. I think we have left that to the discretion of the administration. And so I ask if that's, so
That committee has not met in a number of years. It's scheduled to meet in the fall, and I have contacted Mr. Tate to get board representation. We are required to have a board member on that committee. I do recall the meeting a couple of years ago, but I'll be honest with you, I don't recall who was on the committee.
I checked with one board member already, and we haven't solved that mystery yet.
I was probably wrong about my guess.
All right, so if we intend to keep it as a board appointment, then it's probably something we will need to do as part of our reorganization meeting to make that appointment.
We could do it before then, I think.
Yeah, it's just that I don't want to have it as something, what does it say, at what frequency we appoint?
It does not say my understanding doesn't say how frequently they need to meet either.
But we need to get it done before the next meeting.
Before our next meeting?
No,
The wellness
before the next
committee.
wellness meeting.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense, otherwise no one will be there.
I'm sorry. Chuck, when did you say that?
We're not planning to do that until the fall.
That's what I thought you said, fall. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about this in-school party thing? Because at some of the PTO meetings where I've been, schools have adopted rules that say no homemade foods.
Correct.
That is, so will discourage, meaning if it's store-bought so that the ingredient list is available to avoid allergies, does there have to be some distinction about that?
I mean, we didn't say that specifically, but we certainly could.
Because it seems to me, given the incredible increase of food allergies that students have, and because you could just never know, even in the most careful homes that think they're using good ingredients, it could be on a surface that, I think that's a dangerous thing, so just a suggestion.
I mean, I personally would support no food at the parties, but I think that certainly deserves more decision-making than mine.
It's clearly never been.
Pencils rather than tough.
I was just gonna say, put that out to the public and see.
Absolutely. And that would be our next step as far as the principals go there.
And in terms of the wrapped food thing, I still would like to know who decided that, because every PTO gets someone else blaming them for that it's coming from here. So,
But actually, what I'm hearing is that it's principal driven, but, I mean, they're just, I know, I mean, I don't know personally, but I know people whose kids have food allergies, and it's very dangerous, so.
I mean, our nurses definitely are behind that, and have spoken with the building principals for that reason. It's the same with, and we've had issues, we've had children have had experiences, same thing with balloons, latex, and what have you, so we have to be very careful. And as careful as you try to be, things, all by good intentions, but things happen. But I would agree with you, I think that certainly is a wider discussion.
yeah, we need to have it. That's all I'm saying. Instead of just surprising people.
Chuck, doesn't this policy have to be approved by July 1st?
That was my understanding from.
There was some
But I don't
changes
know
to the
this-
statute, and I was told, Gail and Rudy told me that this has to be approved by the board at the next board meeting.
I don't know if there's anything adverse in this policy. I think it's a wider discussion that we should have. I mean, I think
We can always go back
We can
and
always make it
modify.
stricter.
Yes,
It's-
yes.
That's why we're leaving it as
Yeah,
discouraged,
yeah,
we're not saying.
Yeah.
Well,
No, but this says we'll establish another policy down here, which would be exclusive of this one, right?
where are you looking at? What page are you on?
Let me say, district shall establish board policy and administrative regs.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at the third page at the bottom. And so I have the same concern, I think the same concern you have, which is, this also says that we're going to institute policies around each of these things or administrative regs. And so
So my point is, I think it's okay to approve this, but it sounds like we have more work to do.
or we defer to the administrative regs to manage it in a way.
I see.
an operational way.
This says and, so unless we're changing that to or, it means we.
Well, establishing board policy, you have a list of things. Do we have to make a board policy for everyone? We have board policy around EpiPens. So that would cover 2 quickly. You know, that policy already exists. You know, and number 3, how do you accomplish that? We've already accomplished that. I don't want to bother making a policy around number 4, the in-school parties and celebrations to discourage, policy to discourage. It's easily accommodated in administrative regs. So I don't have any particular, do you think there's you have an issue with as it is for right now?
No.
Would anybody be voting in opposition to this and give a reason for it at our next meeting? Okay, so no comments, so that'll go forward for read and adoption at our next meeting. I've moved all my papers away that I can't find.
Are we going in order of the agenda?
We're going
1,
backwards.
2, 3?
We're moving
You
from
want to
the
just
bottom
work
of
off
the
the top
file.
of the page? We can work off the page order if you want, if that makes more sense.
Instead of right one, I'm sorry.
That's okay. They're in numerical order, which makes,
I put them in numerical order, and I did
Yeah.
put them in numerical order on the agenda side.
that's right.
So unless there's some allegiance to
No.
interactions.
Jerry, I think there's public comment.
Actually, they're going to say public comment until the end.
Oh,
So you'll have an opportunity to discuss it before we vote on it, but it would be coming forward for first read. So we'll have public comment at the end of the meeting.
sorry.
Terrific, thanks.
Next one's 112.
112, guidance counseling.
We must provide guidance counseling services.
Thanks, Chuck.
I think the only changes that were made to this, I think, probably are just changing some antiquated language.
The significantly struck me, I mean, that was,
That's, Matt, if I understand correctly, when it's bolded like that, that's because it cans have changed from PSPA.
Correct. PSBA.
it just struck me as, okay.
Change signifying nothing.
Are there administrative regs in place that talk about the quality of guidance counseling or the diversity or depth of guidance counseling services that we offer and the expectations of what our guidance counselors
I'm not aware of.
are able to deliver?
I'm not either.
Is that, if we wanted to set standards around that, is that the role administrative reg would play?
That's exactly what the purpose would be.
Not for this meeting, but that'd be something I'd be interested in understanding is, are we, as the world continues to evolve, offering the right level of services to get our kids to the right places, whether that be MBIT or college or military academies. I've heard feedback in the community that, we're not necessarily, we don't have the diversity of skills across our group to do that, or we could be better, not that we're bad. Put it that way.
Chuck, one of the significant changes in this is specifically the use of the county psychiatrist, which appears to have been eliminated. Do you have any insight into that?
There was a time, I don't know why it would be in policy, to be honest with you, but there was a time in the school district where if we had a student that was going to be identified with an emotional disturbance, we required an evaluation for a psychiatrist. Having read many of those evaluations, they typically are regurgitating information that we have provided, so it wasn't a worthwhile use of funds, or it wasn't providing anything added to the evaluation.
Comments, opinions? And we're required by law to have this and to actually make it significant.
I know we're required by law to have the policy number 146, which is at the end, student services. So whether this one's required by law, I can't attest to that. In fact, when you see 146, some of the same language is in that policy.
You want to check before we even approve it?
You want to skip forward and look at 146 and see the two of them together as in that light?
Yeah, that's fine too. That's very,
All right. So immediately we're going to federal order. You all right with that, Chuck?
Yep. It's not as in-depth, but some of the language is the same.
I'm sorry, where are we going?
We're gonna jump back to 146. It's actually a new policy that has not existed before.
Yeah, that's a little more vague than a guidance counselor.
But the student services in the chapter 12 of the school code is not just guidance counseling,
Right.
psychology, nurses, social work.
Much broader, actually, I think.
And there's nothing harmful in the guidance counseling policy.
That's what I was just thinking too, it's not hurting anything.
Now, just to make sure it doesn't disagree with what we're looking at.
Yeah. And there's nothing new in 146 that you're not already doing. No. When I read this the first time, we do all this.
Correct.
And we do it on a 6-year cycle?
You'll see a couple of these talk about that 6-year cycle now that's incorporated in the comprehensive plan when you submit that. So you'll
That's
get
what I thought it
the
was.
special ed plan, the gifted plan, the student services plan, as well as the technology plans that develop.
My only issue with this one on 146 is at the end of the authority, the statement regarding the plan to be made available for public inspection does not include reference to the school district website, which is pretty much de rigueur for our making things available to the public. And so I would suggest, and I'll leave it to the discretion of the administration, to include wording about making it available for that same duration on our public website in a form to be reviewed by public.
We modified a couple of other policies that way. I'll go back and see how we did that and modify this before I send it to you guys for final review.
It'll still be for fun. It's not a substantive change, so if we have nothing else that's substantive, this would probably be going forward. Anybody have a reason that they would not be approving this at the next board meeting with Matt's changes regarding posting?
Are we talking about the guidance counselor?
We'll talk about two together. The one,
I don't have any problem, but I want to make sure.
That's fine. So we're talking about, nobody has any particular objection to the pairing or the approval of both 112 and 146. All right. Just to make it clear, this is not a vote we're taking tonight when I ask that question. It's simply administratively so that we know if there's a potential not to have an approvable number at the next meeting. Because if we were to have a number of people here say, I can't go with that, then we'd be in a position where we need to revisit and figure out why. So it's not a vote that we're taking tonight, it's just looking for objections to know if we should go forward.
And this is the place to fix those.
Correct.
113?
113?
Good for 113?
I must admit for the remaining ones, 113 through 114, 113, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 114, they're pretty much regurgitation of law. So there's nothing I can say I disagree with it because it is part of regulations. Where they have the numbers and brackets, which is the reference, the legal reference, I did go back and check most of them. Just to make sure it was there, and where I couldn't find it, I wrote in there, is this necessary? But again, none of it's anything I would say I could disagree with. I do sometimes wonder how PSBA picks which parts of the law they want to put into policy, because clearly they don't put the entire law. Well, but there's nothing in any of these that I could say I disagree with it, because it's mostly the law.
We have in the past, I'm looking at Jerry here on this, we have in the past, if we're just regurgitating law, skipped it and said, well, it's the law, we don't need a policy on it. Do we need these policies? I guess.
Except in those cases where law says you must have a policy.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
Well, that's like, for example, when we're audited by the Department of Ed, they will ask to see our policies on discipline, behavior, support.
Okay.
and confidentiality of records. So we need to,
We need to regurgitate the law. That's fine.
I don't, to what extent do you regurgitate that?
But sure, that's okay.
And we're not wasting any paper since we're doing it electronically. And making it more available to the public is a good thing.
The district special education plan shall include procedures for identifying attention and describe the elements required by law, regulations, and, oh, no, I was reading that thinking about it a different way.
Now, the reason why that one says every 3 years
Yep.
is because federal requirement is 6 years, but comprehensive plan requirements by the state is every 6 years. Special education regulations in Pennsylvania require every 3 years. So we do it twice.
Out of curiosity, well, first of all, Matt, please note that that one needs to be corrected too for public, for posting on our website in that top of page 2. Thank you. Interestingly, this says every 3 years. If you were to choose to do it in a successive year, so you did it in year 1 and you did it again in year 2, would you then, your calendar then count up to go to your, you see what I'm saying? Could you do it on a faster cycle, and would that excuse you from doing it?
No,
for 3 years?
well, we get told, we're a phase 1 district, so when phase 1 is due, that's when we have to.
Okay, okay,
It's a state calendar.
that answers that question.
I know we have to provide parents with some information according to this. Can we do that electronically or do we do that by paper? Because I might have
we do-
400 or so I could get back to you.
We do it, but what we do is, there are numerous times we're required to provide that notification, but the one is annually, and what you might remember, if, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, every time we had a meeting, we were getting a paper
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah.
Now what happens in August, I work with Matt's department, and I send out a mass email to all of the parents of children with disabilities with that document. And then when we
It's
have.
email.
And then when we have the meeting, we say to the parents, if you don't have a copy of one another, let me know, and I will email you another one.
Okay. I mean, if somebody wanted paper, I don't have a problem, but it would be much easier for most parents to have it electronically.
They much prefer that.
Yeah.
I just want to point out to everybody on the bottom, second paragraph on the bottom, that's a comment and not part of the plan that says,
I was just
while
gonna
this
ask,
is
I was just
true.
gonna ask about those. They're
While
under
this
most
is true,
sections.
why in this one piece, there are a slew of these things?
So I apologize, those are my comments, and that's why they're highlighted.
They're highlighted in green, so I know to remove them before I send it to you guys for approval.
Okay.
Good thing you're discreet.
Well, I got a little punch reading all these. Go back and forth with all the laws. That's in my point, though, it's like, that's true, it's in the law, that's one of many, many, many things that are just like that, I don't know why they choose certain things.
Yeah, you had made that comment a minute ago.
But disproportionality is an important piece, and we certainly do monitor that.
Matt, it's interesting to me under the confidentiality, there's no standard applied here for confidentiality. There's no established, let me make sure there's no, I'm under
No referring to
confidentiality.
HIPAA, no.
But there's no
Yeah.
definition, not that FERPA is not prescriptive, but,
I don't know if the 33, 34, and 35, I don't know if that refers to them.
It would.
My guess is that it does.
probably, it's the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 34.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably.
No, those 33, 34, and 35 is our own district's policy on records, which this is repeated in policy 216. And then 33 is chapter 15 of school code, which deals with section 504, and 34, wherever you see something that says 300, CFR 300, those are the regulations implementing the IDEA.
Question for you on this. It's not necessarily here, or I'm not seeing it. I'm looking, when I look at the bottom, recording of meetings. If required, and then this speaks about someone with because of disability or limited proficiency in English. The district is, and it's covered under other policy, I would imagine, required to provide interpreter services when a parent or guardian. Okay. That's covered under other policies.
don't know if I've seen that in the policy, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure either.
It's in the documents, in special ed, the documents when we get to periods. It has that in there.
Yeah, but we may have read it in the documents they send.
Oh.
It may not be in policy, it may just be practice we do.
Right.
Because I definitely remember seeing that.
Yeah,
But I can't-
I know what you're talking about, but I think it might not be in policy, it may just be in your packet.
When we send out invitations to GIP or an IEP meeting, there's a checkbox if you need accommodations or the service of an interpreter, please.
That's where I've seen it, yep.
Yeah, I thought.
So I guess,
Because there are other policies coming later that do talk about providing information in native and the family's language and that kind of thing as well.
so the only point I'd make here on that is that as we look at the other policies, I would hope that we'd be able to include a reference in this policy to that, so that if a parent.
If there is a policy.
Yeah, exactly, and if there isn't, then we should parking lot it so that we at least come back to it at some point. Because it's gonna be in one of the other policies regarding accommodations.
And that recording of meeting sections, as you see, it has no brackets by it, that's not required in special ed law.
Well, and so towards that end, why do we require thank you for pointing out, why do we require 5 days of notice for that?
PSBA.
I don't know why that would occur, and I think that's just kind of a trap that, down here at the bottom of page 3, the district shall permit, when the participant submits at least 5 days prior to the meeting, documentation that substantiates, and further to the point, that why doesn't they have to substantiate? I'm of two minds on this. I can understand the individual has a legitimate interest in attending the meeting, but for good cause. I think this places is a burden. I think we need to look into that, because I have to tell you, my recollection is that as a parent, I have a right to record those meetings. And I don't know that I have an obligation to advise you in advance as a school district. This is always a challenge, because parents that go into an IEP meeting, it's a multifaceted meeting, and I don't know that.
I don't know.
I'm of two minds in terms of one, as the person going representing a child, I'd be of one mind. And as a school district, I might be of the other mind, so I'm trying to balance.
Right, but you wouldn't want it, there should be language that if it's being recorded,
Must be
that
overt.
everybody knows.
Right,
I mean, but,
right. And I think that would be the key in that section, that if we're going to say that, yeah, we permit recording, but you need to advise the person's, and the advisory has to be part of the recording at the beginning of the meeting.
I would think 5 days. If someone's recording, at least can get a little, iffy. And I'm on the other side of that recording, I want to be able to record as well.
That's fine.
And if you don't know ahead of time, then, I can see where that would be
No, I hear you. We're holding these meetings in school buildings that tend to have the equipment to do it. I understand both sides.
everybody can record everything.
Well, if you're a teacher though,
No, I understand. I'm just.
You're gonna pull your personal cell phone out and record it.
No, I understand that, but the reality is that somebody could come in and just it's
No, that's what
really,
this is preventing. Right
I know, but.
Well, historically, and this is before Chuck was here, before Robert was here, we entered into an IEP meeting that was contentious, and the district pulled out a tape recorder. And had advised me 5 days in advance.
That's true.
So.
Well, I think if
That child is now 31 years old. So.
the other thing is maybe we would like to say, or maybe there's the will of the board to say in the administrative regs, 5 days shouldn't be used as a way to get out of something if we can reasonably accommodate otherwise. So the rule says 5 days, but if it was a long weekend and then the people got back and they had no time to prepare, that'd be reasonable to maybe say, let's postpone the meeting and do it when we all know. I don't know, I'm just trying to come up with a compromise, because I see it from your side too, Jerry. I went to a few meetings that were a little contentious, and I never recorded them, how isn't that smart? But
truthfully, the person could just defer the meeting, which is if you walk in and say, I want to record it, the other person can say, I'm not prepared to be recorded at this moment, and then defer the meeting. That's under Pennsylvania wiretap laws. You have to advise persons that you're recording.
I don't want the 5 days used.
That's why I
understand,
that's
but
why
I want reasonable notice.
That's
I want
why
people that reasonable.
can we change it to reasonable notice? I know it's vague in that advance notice, but certainly to advise persons before recording and to advise persons on the recording as you begin.
That's the
Should I
only
say in
thing.
advance?
Yeah.
Or more than
Language to
24
say
hours.
in advance?
Chuck, you were gonna say something?
It's not usually an issue for us. People usually do. The only intent that we have is that if there are times when we find out after the fact the meeting was recorded and we did not know about it. That we don't want to happen. If you tell us a day in advance, we'll work it out. It's not
Can
a
you-
problem.
Then say with advance notice.
Well,
Right,
And
and that
I do-
prevents it from being like, the meeting starts in 5 minutes, this is my advance notice.
one thing is, I think we could rework that section. I think it's permitted. It has to comply with the Pennsylvania state laws regarding wiretap and recording, which means people have to receive notice. For those people who are listening or have attended, you'll hear at our public board meetings, we sit there and we talk about that. At the beginning of the meeting, we talk about that this meeting is being recorded and may be recorded by members of the public. Because under Pennsylvania law, you can videotape at will, but you cannot audio record without advice to persons who might think that there's some level of confidentiality.
I mean, if I'm going to make any suggestions, you perhaps should have a separate policy on recording, because this is about special education. There are a lot of meetings that happen in the district that are not special education meetings that this language doesn't show up anywhere else but here.
I'd look to have it removed for me at this point.
We're gonna see this one again, probably.
Yeah, because
That's fine.
when permission is to recording is granted, it's not a matter, you can't refuse it. You can't record it. But if as a parent, if I want to play the game, if I can't record, then you can't have the meeting. And if you can't have the meeting, you're going to fall afoul of the IEP requirements. So I think we'll have to bring it back. And I think we just want to, I anticipate we'll extract that entirely, that aspect. The other reason is this got very burdened upon proving that you have a disability or that you can't, it's a high burden on a parent. So we're not going to bring this one onto our January. Does this create a problem for you? Is this the one that required?
No,
No, we're fine.
Cool. That's 113 is going to be set aside for subsequent review by the attorney and revisiting at some point. 113.1, which is a new one to us, which is discipline of students with disabilities.
These are required by PA law.
Well, this is new to us, but we have behavior support as the corollary.
Which is the one that we're required, is the behavior support one, and some of the language is similar. But again, this is basically sharing what the law says.
Okay, there's a numbering problem here in terms of looking at our packet. 13.1 is new for discipline of students with disabilities. Our previous 13.1 was behavior support.
That's getting renamed.
And that's going to now be 13.2. Okay, that's what we're doing? Okay.
The only other, I guess I would like this one in particular to have a solicitor review too. Like if you scroll down to someplace, Matt, where I wrote, is this true? When I look back at
Just
the
about
references, I would not have interpreted it as saying what that says.
so 113.1, you want the solicitor review?
I would feel better with that.
All right, let's review it absent that aspect. And if we find that everything else is agreeable and that is true, then we can see it on the 15th, unless there's something else comes up. Let's review it conditioned upon that being true. If it isn't true, it'll revert here again. So the people who are listening and may not know what goes on at a high level, some of the things that go on that prompts this sort of investigation, this sort of policy is students with disabilities may engage in behaviors which are contrary to the policies and practices of the school district. If those behaviors by the students are a manifestation of their disability, it's not something that you can, it's like when you talk about a child forming intent to do something. If the child can't form intent, you have problems prosecuting that criminally. Same thing, if a child's disability, I'll use a classic example, if a child were to have Tourette's and make utterances that are either racial or profane, that's a characterization of his or her disability. We can't punish that child, discipline that child for those actions. And there's a carve out whenever we have a disciplinary hearing that asks, is the issue potentially a manifestation of the child's disability? And so that's part of what goes on here. Secondarily, I believe this also comes from some issues that have come out in terms of the way certain children have been managed potentially with on the autism spectrum, where those behaviors by the staff have not necessarily been appropriate. It's not a district issue. It's a educational issue.
A lot of that's covered in the next one, the behavior support. Now, can you go
I have
to
a
where we're
question.
also with highlighting?
Yeah,
Where? Just
there's a question in,
go up more, all the way up to the first.
yeah, that green.
More. Yeah, you can go down. Keep going. Student with a disability actually said other than an intellectual disability, because the students with intellectual disabilities are all actually have another set of regulations that cover them. So you may not suspend students with an intellectual disability unless you have permission from the Secretary of Education of the Commonwealth. Going down, it's where they wrote, it said identical. I changed it because the language in the law is not identical, it's similar. Keep going. That's just the wording. And then for weapon,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't know if you want a legal review of that, as how are you defining weapon, IDEA?
It's defined further up in the policy, that's why I didn't understand.
Where are we looking at weapon reference?
So page 3, it says carries of weapons or possession of weapons, school and school property functions. For
Got it.
purposes of this provision, weapon is defined as a weapon, device, instrument, material. I thought that was the definition. Do you see that, John?
Yes, and where it says the 2.5 inches piece, that's from IDEA.
And you don't think this one refers to the same thing?
If you look at the district's weapons policy itself, it defines weapon based on criminal code. So I don't know if there's a need to make sure those two.
I don't either.
Yeah, actually, and that,
I wouldn't want to have something in the policy that later on is going to be a problem.
But then it's a problem in
Correct.
paragraph 1 too.
that's
Because
what I'm looking at.
that's, yeah, that's where, I took that as a definition, so I didn't know the question mark.
Yeah, that carving out of a pocket knife is wholly unacceptable in the school district at this point. And realistically, unfortunately, I know this personally, the definition of a weapon on the criminal side of things actually goes more to intent. While it has certain things that are described specifically, such as firearms, other devices that could be implemented or used become a weapon when they're used. Which would seem to be the same case here. A pencil could become a weapon when used.
Well, what happened is if a student had a weapon that was, a student with a disability had a knife that was 2.25 inches, I would not follow the IDA regulations, I would follow the, I forget what the state weapons legislation, regulations are. If that makes sense. So my
So we're
suggestion
gonna,
is just to have
we're
it.
gonna send this back
For
to.
the-
Okay. 'Cause that is
Confusing.
So we've agreed that this is going to go. Any other recommendations to the solicitor on what Chuck and maybe put forward? Is it ready?
So, Job 1 is going to go to the solicitor, and it sounded to me like there were substantial questions about them. So this will be brought-
Joanne when it
And this
goes
will be
up.
brought back. Okay.
It has, yeah.
Policy 113.2, behavior support. Again, this is language coming out of the regulations, fostering use of positive behavioral supports rather than punitive measures. And defining when those more punitive type means can be used and how. I don't know if I had anything in green here, Matt.
just this, question here.
Yeah, I don't know that we have those regulations, and we can certainly promulgate them, but it's law, so I don't know what we would say differently.
Yeah, You seem to just question administrative rights.
I just don't know because it's law what we would say in regulations, but
Just regurgitating law again.
it is what it is. But again, like, I don't know if it's somewhere that it requires, I don't know if laws ever require administrative regulations.
So we take that out?
So positive techniques. Administrative seclusion.
I would think so. yeah.
So take out,
Everything in green.
so would you say the district should provide a copy of its procedures for behavioral
And I-
support?
Yeah,
And I think if you
That makes
check the regulations, that's what it says.
Okay, all right, cool.
So just.
so all those references come out.
So that's a minor change?
I consider that.
I
What do you
have
think? Taking out the greens there, Jerry.
So instead of saying, shall provide a copy of its administrative regulation, it would just say the district shall provide a copy of its procedures for behavior support and development of special education.
See, I don't know that we do it. I don't know that we ever do it. There are two spots in here that talk about seclusion. One is the definition, confinement of a student in a room with or without staff supervision in order to provide a safe environment to allow. I have to tell you, just my perspective on this, on the next page, page 3 of 5, we talk about seclusion. I would define, correct me if I do not want a child secluded without supervision. I don't want a child, I know we wouldn't, but I want to put in a policy. Because the definition says with or without. And so I want to make sure that while we permit involuntary seclusion of a student in accordance, but it must be the least restrictive alternative, and I would want to add, and the child must be under supervision. I think it's dangerous. It's just a dangerous thing to put a child in behaviors like that might be exhibited here in a secluded thing and not have them under constant supervision. Anybody disagree?
Define supervision, I agree with you.
I expect someone to be able to observe the child, or when it was observation.
I don't want to put a staff member in danger in the process, so you observe the child. Yeah.
Unfortunately, if the child is doing something self-harming or something else, you need to seclude them.
Right.
Unfortunately, they need to be observed, because if they go to self-harm that's even more drastic, then I do need someone to step in and put themselves in harm's way, unfortunately.
We always have eyes on them, and mostly because when a student is agitated, we don't want them doing things that they're going to hurt themselves.
Exactly.
Okay, fair.
So there's
You would have no objection then to adding that they would be
none of all.
under staff supervision or adult supervision.
Yeah, just push out or without, so with staff supervision.
Well, that's the definition by the state, that definition on page 2. This is on page 3. It talks about we permit it, but I want to make the condition that it has to be supervised or with.
On the following page, there's a section on seclusion, I think, that says the district prohibits the seclusion of students in locked rooms, locked boxes, or other structures or spaces from which the student cannot readily exit. That would be.
Yeah, it's above that, but the seclusion in the line, in the paragraph immediately above that, but the seclusion must be the least restrictive alternative, and I would be adding a comma
Right
there.
Yeah.
Or just say, but seclusion must be supervised and the least restrictive alternative.
I'll put it this way, which was, I was going to say, but the student may not be secluded without supervision. And the only reason I say it that way is because if they must be supervised, yeah, I checked on them. This is how you get suicides in prisons, which is they were supervised. Somebody kind of checked in every 15 minutes. I want to make it that they can't be without supervision. I think it's stronger to say it that way. I don't know.
Must be the least restrictive alternative, and the student must be supervised at all times.
Let's say that, or observed, because you said supervised. This is under the seclusion here at the end of, I think it really,
Yeah, I think it's good.
it summarizes what we do.
Yeah, we're not, that's what we do as well.
But I also see that that's been an area of litigation in the past, not for us, but for others.
So, under the seclusion,
At the end of that sentence, yeah, least restrictive alternative,
And
comma.
Next
Who's
case.
doing that?
Keep it.
There you go.
are we on that?
And you had phrasing you wanted to, and
and must be supervised at all times.
yeah. unless
Keep
it's
going back and
otherwise-
forth between supervised and observed. What's the difference?
Is there a difference, Chuck, in your, like supervise, observe, you care?
I don't care, our practice is observed, we have eyes on.
They may have to
I
get
think
somebody to come in
I
and
think a supervised
it's an
could
active
mean something, yeah.
So make it observe the whole time.
for observation.
What's that?
Thank you.
Did you want to add, Jerry, that it's, you want it to be a staff member?
Yeah, that probably makes sense. I can't imagine. I know it sounds silly because we're documenting what we do. We would never not do it, but you're right. As long as I'm going that, why would we not say
That's what I was thinking.
with adult
Observation of,
by a staff,
by
A
staff.
member of the staff.
by a member of staff?
If a parent was there, though.
First of all, you're assuming it's the parent of that child. Are you assuming it's the parent of that child?
Parent card, yeah, whatever. I'm
I mean, okay, parent
what
card.
if there's a situation where the child was supervised by an appropriate adult that wasn't, where the staff could be part of the
I think
issue?
that puts our staff at
Well, no,
to determine who's appropriate.
well, risk, puts district risk, but
You're asking about a volunteer,
no, I'm talking
parent and
much
child.
closer than that, yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
as an
if it's a
example,
parent,
my son's got something
They can
going on, I'm in the
release-
room,
they can
staff
release
members
them from
agitating,
school
at least in my
Yeah.
view,
into the custody of the
to
parent.
calm it down, can I sit with my child?
Right.
If the staff member's not allowed to leave, maybe that's
Right.
for the protection of the district, but what?
If the parent was there, it would still be someone there.
So it doesn't exclude others, but it's.
Because you know what,
Staff member.
honestly, there's a whole in loco parentis issue going on here, which is if the parent has a behavior with that child in the school, that the child is taking responsibility of the school, that's inappropriate, maybe they slap them across the face because they think that's gonna help. That's an issue we need to be aware of. So we can't leave an agitated child in a situation with somebody who may exacerbate it. It's a good question though, but I mean, I can just foresee that happening.
Right, the recording piece.
Nonetheless, this is going back is this, I don't remember where we were, that was the last one went back, this one,
No, I think this one was okay.
There's no reason for Rob to look at that just for that language, right?
no.
So we're on 113.3.
So we think this is okay then, that's new behavior support. They may have a reason that they would object to this? No reason, so this will come forward to read and an adoption. Chuck, we're up to a new one.
Screening evaluations for students with disabilities, again, this is pretty specific, I'm not in the West policy, but it is mostly regurgitation. On the first page, I just changed that number 1 to develop a positive behavior support plan because that's what the regulations say, not just to provide educational programming. Number 2,
I think there's an
I'm just
element,
clarifying what the law says,
There's-
actually.
there's an element here that needs to be harmonized because the one that we turned back, the new 113, has a section of child fines and outreach. And this whole thing of screening and evaluation for students, I can foresee where there's an overlap or interplay between the two. So when 113.1 goes, 113 is going back, 113 is to be reviewed, or 113 is good?
The policy has a hunk of it is about doing functional behavioral assessments. It's an odd combination to me. I don't know why the two are put together, but it talks about screening processes, which is one thing, and it talks about FBAs, which is a very specific thing that happens in very specific situations. Why they chose to put them together, I don't know, but again,
Chuck, this is something that we're required by law. I'm back there. We're regurgitating law now. Are we required to have it?
I'm not aware that we are. Again, I haven't read all these.
This thing is so disjointed that
On the section on page 3 that starts with the evaluator shall prepare and sign a full report. Some of that I'm not sure where that, it's definitely not law, I don't know what it wants there.
Yeah.
This was on my policy.
I mean, I guess my question is, do you need it in your job? Just,
And we don't know if we're required to have it?
I don't know that. I would, you know, if we wanted to check with the solicitor to be sure, because like I said, yeah.
This is
This
PSB,
whole
I
last
think,
chapter,
right, recommending? I know, it just,
113.3.
screening and evaluations.
And the whole thing on independent, I know that there's the appetite to have things readily available for the public to see rather than them having to go read the laws. It's like a lot of this stuff, when we get out what Wendy was talking about, the safeguards we provide to parents, so this stuff, a lot of this stuff is in there. So
Right.
parents are receiving it. Like I said, there's nothing that's not accurate in it, I just don't know if you need that policy.
The director of special ed shall maintain a list of qualified independent evaluators in each of the various disciplines commonly relied upon to provide education-related evaluations and assessments, and shall promptly make this list available to any parent or guardian who requests it.
Which we are required to do by law. You know, listen to it.
Well, yeah.
They're not
I'm
required, they're not
disagreeing with you
required
when
to
I
do
want an
that.
expert, I'm not gonna go to you and ask you for the list of people I should go to the expert for, it's a little
But we have the
counterintuitive.
list, we're required to have a list.
When I need to, when I went on my own.
I was confused about this. The school contacts law enforcement regarding a student who already has a positive behavior support plan. I don't understand that reference. It's at the bottom of the first page. FBAs must be conducted. First of all, FBAs are functional behavior assessments. School contacts law enforcement regarding a student who has already had a positive behavior support plan. It's just so poorly worded. I could contact the police for any reason. The child may have witnessed something and they're involved in an auto accident and I need to report this.
What that's saying is that we must do an FBA in those circumstances. So if we are contacting law enforcement about a student who has a positive behavior support plan, then we have to do an FBA. But you don't have a positive behavior support plan if you didn't already do an FBA. So
my inclination is to ask if we need this. And, you know, if it helps Dr. Lambert, that's one thing. I'm happy to give you whatever support you need, but regurgitating law for the sake of having a big book of policies, which is what this feels like, it doesn't do anything for me.
So you want me to check to see if it's required by law?
Well, that's what I want. I don't know, but I don't know.
I don't have a pressing need.
Back part of it is like, can't even read it.
I know, it's
I mean,
difficult.
Man,
I'd say bring it
again,
back if it has to be approved.
No attorney left.
If he says we don't have to,
So if
Trash it.
it's not required,
We're probably not gonna see it.
Dr. Lambert has said he doesn't need it to
then
fulfill
we'll
his.
move to, well, it's a new one, so.
We won't even bother with it, yeah. So we're gonna defer
no,
to our attorney's
3.4.
counsel, yeah.
And I'm gonna have the same opinion on this one, but I may be the other one, so.
Yeah, much of what's in here, and I don't want to say all of it, but much of it's already in policy 216 student records, and much of what's in here is not specific to special education students, it's student records in general.
So I think there's a particular sensitivity by people who have special education students about, so I think it was regurgitated only if you're new to special education, you look through the policies, you don't think to look for confidentiality somewhere else. For me, if we're not required to, maybe we just put in for confidentiality, refer to this other policy. Like, I don't know that we need to rewrite it, but my guess is the intent is to house special education information in a place where if you're a parent, you're new to this, you don't understand how all this works, you go somewhere to look. And there's a high concern about confidentiality.
The flip side is you get overwhelmed with information too.
Right, that's why I think you say confidentiality maybe is listed in, unless there are things in here that you think,
Does our system currently support, in the old days, it was a paper record, and whoever had reviewed the record could sign the cover sheet. This part on top of page 3 of 7, record of access, this is also something that occurs in HIPAA, which is a nightmare. You know, well, yeah, you would. So is that that's part of the law?
Where it says, how about electronic records, I wrote that.
Yeah, well, there you go. You and I are thinking alike.
And I think we've had that conversation, I don't remember where we landed on it, but.
Again, it's Code of Federal Regulations. I'll bet you it's kind of.
You are required to have a record of access. And when
agree.
we have the paper files, we have a record of access that people sign what they looked at or didn't look at. But now that we have so much that's electronically, so a teacher can look at a student's IEP by going into our student management system. There's no place to sign it.
No, but you go in, and that's the point, is that you go in, and I looked at Mike and Wendy were in that space. You go in and you're, I mean,
so we have to keep record.
yeah, but it's done by the system.
Right.
In a hospital, I mean,
That's
I have a friend who was discharged because she went into, a friend of hers was admitted up to the ED, up to the floor. She was an emergency room nurse, and she checked his record to see what it was. She lost her job because he hadn't come in through the ED. She had no reason to look at his record. So, one, separate from the discussion of policy, can we look at the IT system and see if that supports that functionality? If it doesn't, it'll need to be something which,
Specific.
it's actually to have a record by date and time and user who retrieves
An audit,
an audit trail
it does not.
for review. It doesn't have an audit trail for review.
It does not.
Okay, we need to address that separately from this. I think this needs to go back because I'm going to be careful about writing a policy that we can't fulfill. I understand if it's requirement of law. If it's requirement of law, then we have another unfunded mandate that we will have to look to modify our procedures around.
So we want the solicitor to review this?
I think so, in light of what you just said and Chuck's note here about electronic records.
And if it is truly, if that is required, then I think we need to look at a solution and come back.
So the system tracks changes.
Yeah.
If someone goes in and modifies a record,
That's not what we're talking about.
but if someone goes in and looks at a record, it does not store that.
Yeah, this says the district, as it's written here, and I don't know,
We
it's
actually
cited.
restrict who can view.
We do restrict who can view what records.
So you can only view records of your students or students you're interacting with. You can't review students.
That's correct. Teachers in the classroom can see their students. There are certain individuals in the building who would be able to see all the students' records. And it is hierarchical like that. That is
Well,
absolutely
then that
true.
gets more complex.
No, because you know what, and that's why we need a solicitor. I'm not practicing law here, but here's what this says. This, as written, assuming it's drawn from the record, the district shall keep a record of parties obtaining access
Yeah.
So obtaining access and accessing are two different things. So if you have the user list that authorized, that I know that this person was on the list to be able to see, they would have obtained access. I don't have the record of them accessing.
So that's
Right.
an easier problem to solve.
So I would have
Yeah,
solved the
yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Yeah,
So we
that's,
do have a record of who has
Oh, good,
obtained.
but we need to ask Rob.
yeah, I think it's, you understand my differentiation.
The intent that I've always understood is they want to know that Mrs. Jones looked at that file on this date.
Right. As it's written here, and assuming it's drawing from CFR 34, Code of Federal Regulation 34, the requirement as described here is tell me the universe of persons who could potentially access that, not necessarily who has access to that.
But then it goes on, the date of record includes the name of the party, the date access was given.
Given, meaning I gave you access. You can access Mike's record. I gave you that a year ago. You can never access the record. But I
I'm
gave you
guessing-
access to it a year ago.
I'm guessing we're not the only school district who doesn't
Absolutely.
have easy,
This has come up many times.
right, easy access, so they made it more general so that,
I
but yes,
understand, but
we
if
need
my
people.
interpretation is right,
Yeah.
then we're in
Right,
good state.
so we're going back to
We're
solicitor.
gonna go back to solicitor, probably Matt.
I just want to reinforce that only people that should have access. Not anybody can just go in.
Right.
Agreed. Oh, yeah, and I think that the structure of our system does support what this requires. I just wanna make sure.
We go overboard. and they-
Well, it's even better than I would have guessed when Matt described the hierarchy, that you can set different levels of access. So that's great.
Matt, you understand where we're looking at, so when you talk,
Recognize
when you
your
check with,
sensitivity.
when you check with Rob,
Say it again if you want.
frame it the way we want. It's gonna go back for review. Is there anything else anybody wants to highlight as they look at this?
I just want to know if we even require it. You know, every time I see new from PSBA, my question is, do we need it? Is there a reason we have it?
We get asked to produce our records policy, and we have 216, which is what we've always used.
Right.
So what I'd ask
When you get
is,
there, you're gonna see the diversity.
I was gonna say, so what I'm gonna ask is the two record, the two 216 is not here tonight, so that we get those harmonized. So one, the question
Maybe one
is,
would be enough.
exactly. If we
I'm
need
not
to
saying he needs one.
bolster
But one's
216,
enough.
we'll
And
bolster
whenever they
216.
request it, I give them 216, and that is fine.
All right, cool.
All right, what are we up to?
Gifted education is 114, but again,
Did we just do something with gifted education? Did we do it in academic standards recently?
Yes.
Okay. thank you.
yeah, I think the only comment I made on this one again is about the administrative regulation. It is what it is.
Confidentiality again.
That's another one. I assume we have to have.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
All right, one question. So this is,
What you have to have is what they want to see is the section under authority. That's what you
Yes.
have to have.
Yes.
all right, so in the top section, 6 years, we're gonna have to add that for the public review again. That's an ongoing, we'll probably just do a scan for that comes up.
Oh, you mean just the electronic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you add the bolded part about the Bucks IU or is
No.
that's,
They added that to their base based on what we had in ours.
it didn't look like you did, Chuck. I just was curious.
I mean, many years ago, we did that, since I've been here. we have. But that's not harmful, I mean.
Yeah. May or may not.
Maybe.
Just in case.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious.
Just trying to make commercials evaluate formal relevance. All right, I want to talk for a moment about the class size limits on gifted, because that's come up. I just want to make sure that we're current on that, and that's something which has come up before. I think it came up in academic standards for a moment, about why are they staffed the way they are. Total number of gifted students can be on an individual gifted teacher's caseload is restricted to a maximum of 65 students. So specifically, and the total number of gifted students can be in an individualized gifted teacher's class roster to a maximum of 20. So by definition, If you put 20 in each class, that teacher could only teach 4 sections a day.
3 sections, that's 5 kids.
3 sections and 5 extra, so they have to have, right. So I'm not disagreeing with it, I'm just looking at what it means to us, which is why,
Are those
Given-
numbers or those state numbers?
State numbers.
Is that state regulation? Why are we
I
debating?
think it's
I'm making, I
It's
want
silly.
to make a point, I understand it, but my point is, when people look at us sometimes and they go, how come you only have X number of kids in the IEP section, and in the gifted section? Because if the limit's 65, and that's all the caseload the teacher can carry, and they only have so many periods a day, giving them a larger section buys you nothing, because they can only carry the caseload that they can carry.
So it says to a maximum of 65. Can we practice 60 and that way we don't have to break the extra?
No, that's fine. My point was,
It's 65 over,
6 periods.
over 6 periods.
So we have a couple elementary schools where we have more than 65 students with GIEPs,
Right.
and therefore we need to have more than one gifted teacher.
That's really.
If you're teaching at the high school, we can't give you more than 2 or 3 sections to teach because it would put you over the phone.
and just so I'm clear, that's,
And it's painful when we have 22 kids, and what do you do? The state does allow a waiver, and we have applied for and received that waiver in the past when you have, 7th grade has 21 kids in it, so they let us run it with 21 rather than a class of 10 and 11.
Right, but that waiver is just for that 1 year. Right?
And you're strongly encouraged not to come back again.
so, my point for bringing it up, one is as board, we set policy, where our policy and our practices interface, and this is one of those points that, we get the question about how come we have so many sections, or how come that teacher doesn't have a heavier course load? My question is, that it's described as the teacher's caseload. Now, if they have other students without IEPs, is that okay? Can I use that teacher for other things, for the other times?
That's how I read it.
That's why we're asking the question. Okay.
Oh,
But
but,
we had to, it's just very complicated. We'd have to prorate the caseloads based on how much of them are being a gifted teacher and how much of them are not.
So it's kind of an FTE situation, it's kind of a full-time
We look at it very
equivalent, so
carefully.
you will.
and that would also mean in effect that a teacher couldn't specialize in gifted.
No, they do.
They do.
Elementary level.
I meant to say at the high school level.
No one, middle school, they could.
Right.
I just make the point, that's
We have
part
one
of
middle
it.
school teacher.
As we're looking at building utilization, and we're talking about, how heavily utilized is the building, how big is the room? I just give it as a discussion here for color.
Yet another complicated.
My experience also, I'm sure Chuck, it's not uniform from grade to grade either. So, and so what room may be suitable for the first class of the day
Absolutely.
may be too small or entirely too large for the third. What do you do?
Absolutely.
So,
I'll make the change to the electronic review.
right, and just clean up the commentary under delegation of authority, which was a question, it's just, yes, a question. I don't see any real,
And it's required.
and Denise, your question about the waiver is right there at the bottom of the caseload section. It is referenced.
Are you really strongly discouraged from coming back?
Oh, yeah.
I remember that happening.
They're basically saying, we're giving you a year to figure out how not to do that.
Okay.
Does that have to figure, well, you can't figure, I was gonna ask the stupidest question of the day, which was, does that have to figure into our redistricting? But you can't, because it's every year the kids are different.
And they are where they are.
Exactly, well, that's how all of our education is, the kids come from where they come. This was agreeable to, anybody have an objection to seeing this for final? So this will be on the next meeting for agreement.
The next one is homebound instruction.
In the top line, urgent reasons, is that like, really have that said? That seems so vague.
I do believe the regulation,
Well, I mean, just physical disability, illness, injury, and confinement is,
You could have someone who is under protective in a protective situation, that they can't be out in public for some
As a
issue.
catch-all bucket in my mind for
Okay.
just anything that,
Someone's just been threatened,
doesn't
maybe you
fit.
haven't yet adjudicated and resolved everything, you still need to educate them.
I get it, I just thought it's
It is
that's just
weird.
a catch-all phrase for that.
That's how
I
I
have to
read
go
it. It's
back,
just-
I apologize, I'm not remembering, but I believe the important thing there was the urgent. So I think they talk about, it can't be just any reasons, it has to be something urgent. I think that's what they were trying to do.
Right, but it doesn't
It doesn't say.
necessarily define what
Correct.
urgent is, so it,
So in my mind, that gives Dr. Lambert a little bit of latitude to do what needs to be done for these kids, basically.
Which is why we have in delegation responsibility to be requested by a physician, so that it's something urgent.
Now, let me ask, I have a query here about the period of homebound instruction for an individual shall not exceed 3 months.
And then it could go all the way down
Okay,
somewhere, it says,
The superintendent designee may request approval to extend the period of homebound instruction. It shall be reevaluated.
thank you. So when we get a request for homebound, we will only accept a request up to 3 months. At the end of 3 months, they can give us another request. There is actually a system that we have to report to the state, these, when they're coming in, the request for homebound, and we have actually had a situation where the state said you may not grant another extension.
Does the state subsidize homebound?
Not even, it's not even required, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe the language is, you may.
Until they tell you you can't.
No, I mean, you may provide homebound, I don't know that they even require that you must.
but then
But you can only do it for
State says
so
you
long.
can't do it.
the state says you may do it, but you can't do it for more than 3 months,
Unbelievable.
but they don't pay you for it. And for me, and that's, and I just, we are a large, diverse district in terms of population. We have students who are in the midst of transplant, who are on restrictions, they can't be out there.
I know 2 kids with illnesses that,
We have children dealing with cancer and other post-operative situations that are on long-term, they're on long-term.
Yeah, I mean, anytime the only time that's seen it come into question is when there's a question about what is the.
Is there,
Obvious, it's
where is the definition of homebound instruction? Because there is no definition. I was trying to figure out if we're doing distance learning, if the child is ill and we.
Well, you did start last year, or the year before, piloting with a company that the students can do the instruction through the computer. And the reason we've moved to that, sometimes the students have an illness that
prevents human contact.
prevents human contact or alters their sleep cycles to the point that they are sleeping. They have a disorder that causes them to sleep for lots of periods of time.
Yeah,
So if they're awake, that's when they have to do it.
that's, one of the kids I know, that was the scenario. It was nothing, you would never look at this kid and know anything was wrong. I could see people questioning, but it caused him to sleep a lot of the day. Like 20 hours of the day at times when it was bad. It's bad. So,
So it's good.
by the way, she had nothing but great things to say, Mom. Council rocks.
I'm shaking my head, Matt, but I'm good. I don't.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think it doesn't restrict us from doing what we can and should.
Right.
But I think we.
So what are we on?
Concussion management.
Oh, favorite topic.
Which, by the way, we do very well
Yeah, we do.
as a district. We
Oh.
do very well.
Personal experience.
Yes.
Me too. Second that.
Me
Agree
too.
with that, so.
My kid was in theater. We
Kyle,
had a lot of
yep.
concussion in theater.
Kyle's in.
Hey, any day. I have a question on this one on special needs for coaches.
Concussion.
Is this, you could just go to the end to last, is this dictated by state law or is this our policy? Or suggested?
Which
Under
part?
training,
Penalties.
penalties. Okay.
We read this once, didn't we?
No.
We asked me to bring it back after reviewing it with Mike, and I'm going to let him.
Oh, with the athletic director, right?
Yeah, 2 months ago.
Scott,
Scott,
Lesher.
so I did take it back to them and.
they got their feedback? Oh, good.
Do we make any changes based on
I
that?
got to-
So my question about the penalties piece. Is that our language, their language, state law?
Because I don't,
I don't see anything referenced.
Yeah.
you got the four.
Because my personal point of view is, it's kind of silly for a second violation
And there should
to
never be a
suspend,
second.
to suspend a coach for the remainder of the season, the next season, the way we hire coaches, and everything's on an annual basis. You make a mistake, okay, get it. There's some kind of penalty. Second time you're out, because now all of a sudden you've created this gap that's become inefficient for the district and our hiring. So I don't understand why we allow 3, and I would advocate to have 2.
Chuck, I believe that's state,
I don't know.
isn't it? I'm not
I
sure.
apologize, I would have to research that.
Well, it does reference.
It's,
That's everything.
24 PS
If
53.
it's showing the following
Yep.
policies.
Oh, is that what that, so before I wrote,
Yeah.
I took that for the whole policy.
yeah, the footnote points to.
Now, here's my question on this, when you go to that. Hypothetical. The child is a football player,
Your own card everywhere.
And he's in the play.
Same one though.
That's interesting, because it doesn't
And
have
why
that on
is
this one.
Oh, it does?
Oh, and he gets
No.
concussion 1 in football and concussion 2
Oh,
in
that's
the
weird.
theater.
No, he doesn't get any concussion in the theater. Here's my problem.
Of course not. You went to the
He
theater.
went to the theater. So here's my question though, because I'm looking at this issue, which says, the coach shall not return a student to participation until the student is evaluated and cleared for return to participation in writing by an appropriate medical professional. A student shall not participate in any physical activity to include physical education classes, extracurricular activities, and clubs until the student is evaluated and cleared for participation in writing by the appropriate medical professional. So here's my question. The drama teacher doesn't, or the drama advisor
Doesn't know.
is not on our plan around concussion advisement.
Oh, I'm telling you, those
I think,
I'm
I
asking.
think the difference.
sports, I agree.
Yeah, I would
And
think-
everybody who touches that student in that school knows, at the high school level.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question, because then have you violated the child's?
No, you sign,
Right.
you sign,
I'm just, you understand my dilemma is, to finish my hypothetical, give me one moment. My hypothetical is, do I now suspend, is that the first penalty for that drama coach? When the kid comes in and is participating in the thing and he stands up to sing, he's on the stage, and someone says, Paulie had a concussion last night in the football game. Is that coach, is that?
Works though.
in my
He-
opinion,
he-
it's unrealistic. That's
Okay.
my opinion. The kids who have these concussions, they're not standing up and singing when,
Yeah.
until they're released. But I understand what you're saying, you don't know. I think you have to apply reasonable logic to all of this. But I'm just saying that the kids don't remember what they did one class to another class to another class. We have a teacher here, so he's shaking his head. I'm just saying, like, it's not, by the time he can stand up and sing again, he'll be released.
No, I'm sorry, I read
I
it in more depth, and it says athletic activities, so the penalties only apply to athletic activity. I just want to make sure that persons who are not trained in our regimen, okay, in the procedures and the protocols, they're not trained in the I want to make sure that they weren't being picked up.
You're protected.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
I
say.
just want to, it's green because we added that, so if you have problems, then we can certainly take it out. The reason we wanted that in there is we have situations where a student is under doctor's orders not to do a lot of things because of a concussion, and they want to go on the ski trip, and we don't want them to go on the ski trip.
Right.
And I'm just
No,
using
you're
ski
helping the
trip as an
parents.
example, but whatever.
The kids want to do stuff.
I'm fine with it, my concern was in the penalties for staff.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that I wasn't subjecting staff who is not trained in these protocols, because the chess club isn't really into concussion management, that I'm not subjecting them to this penalty. Okay.
So back to staff. Is this covered by state law? Those numbers out there reference the numbers that are go throughout the policy. You don't have to say numbers next to
Right here.
1, 2, or 3. Oh, we got 4?
You have 4.
It
PS.
covers that colon.
Click
Four
on
PS.
Here we go.
Click on that.
Or, so that
No,
for second,
okay,
third is,
You have to go find it.
No, it's here.
Yeah, that's the next.
Oh my gosh. I don't even click on that.
Do you want another stack to do next week?
so it's, we keep going, right? This is gonna have a penalty somewhere.
This internet thing is so good.
Yeah, really, internet.
Whoever read it.
Just do control F for find penalties.
Matt, you're going past it.
D above.
Oh, there it is, yep, there it is, it's codified in state law.
First violation, third violation.
Well, there goes that. That's brilliant.
Idiots.
Oh, there is F, sorry.
Actually,
We can make it tighter.
this third
we?
violation is.
I don't see why not.
Can we make it tighter? I'd like to. I think that's.
And you like to say at first.
The second time you're gone.
Yeah.
Because, it's not just the silliness of a coach doing that twice, because I know they got a third strike, but think about it, if you're suspended for the rest of the season in a year, the way we hire EDRPP every year, we're gonna.
My other question is if we make it tighter, can he challenge it because he can say that we're not in accordance with the law?
I don't know, I just asked the question, can we?
That's my question as well.
I would think-
Yeah, we
Yeah, that's what he asked Rob.
The-
I wouldn't mess with
I'm talking to
I
Rob.
wouldn't mess with state law either, but if we're allowed to,
Yeah.
it, unless,
at a higher standard, I would like us to have a higher standard.
I would venture, first of all, EDRPP, I'm gonna look for someone who had been
Extra duty.
among our union leadership.
Extra duty.
EDRPP is not covered under the bargaining agreement beyond the allocation of points. The members of EDRPP are not.
It's a minimal coverage within our contract. There's due process involved, but it's generally in that position.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, so that we can technically re-interview for every one of those every year.
It's the managerial prerogative.
Yeah, so I think, thank you. So I think under that pretext, I think we could be superior to the law.
Without changing the policy. We just won't rehire.
Well, we could actually codify it if we wish to, because it's an at-will position for most of our coaches. Now, certainly, and this only relates, the penalties only relate to the EDRPP position, not to their employment. If they were a teacher, it doesn't relate to their employment.
Correct.
So if you desired to make it more substantive, that's your call. If you wanted to jump straight to
We're done.
Yeah, I'd take 2 out of there, put for a second violation, permanent.
Do you want to ask,
Coaching any athletic.
you want to run it past the solicitor or just do it?
I think it's an at-will position. I think that it's within our power to do it as a policy. I'll defer to others to consider. I'm not looking to you, but I think it's within our.
But he is.
to do it.
I would say you're hamstringing yourself too, because 10 years down the line, you might find another fit for an employee that, 10 years time, things go differently. You can set your own policy.
Exactly.
We don't have to write anything down.
That's it, we just choose not to.
Yeah.
Whatever you wish to do. Well, actually, as a board, we can affect policy, but if we write it down, the administration can't do it. They have to come to us to recommend, and they would have to think twice before recommending. That's all.
So what do you advocate? Leave it alone?
I'm deferring. My experience in this realm is much more limited than.
Where's the oversight? If you don't
I'd like to
change
see a change. Somebody throws a kid in there a second time with a concussion, that's bad news for me.
So we're just going to eliminate 2 and move 3, the third violation, as if it were the second violation, and use the third.
Right.
The kid's gonna wanna go every time the parents might like
If that's the
to go,
expectation
but
of the board,
Okay.
the coach has gotta be the responsible.
Here's what we're going to do with this one, unless there's, we're agreed we're going to have this policy, is that what I'm understanding? So Matt is going to take this direction on this. He's going to take it that he'll bring it back for Reed. He will check with Rob in his mix, and if Rob waves us off, we'll return to what we have here. But other than that, we'll be accepting this, so.
Second is 1 or 2, is drop.
Right, first and permanent, right, 1-year suspension and permanent, and beyond that, if Rob tells us we can't, we'll come back with the way we saw it
So
tonight.
either way.
It's coming up
Got it.
Matt, can you scroll up the guidelines?
in the same one.
No. What's in both?
No, we're done.
I just wanted to make people, we added, after the school, we added district because the trainers like to be able to do, like, say, Newtown Middle School North together. And we added on an annual basis instead at the start of the season because they typically do it once beginning of the year for all athletes.
Like, would incoming ninth graders know who do like a spring sport? Would they know that?
Yes, they're hammered to go get them.
They will, if they're thinking
Well,
about.
they can't participate in that.
And what happens if someone moves in?
Yeah, that's.
They can't participate in that.
Right, so then
I
they
think
do
they
it on
do
their
them as the
own?
I
new
think they
students
can
are,
just do them, yeah.
yeah.
As soon as they move in.
Well, let's put it this way. We can say in that instead of on an annual basis or more frequently as required, and you're done. So they can do it ad hoc.
We just say,
We don't do it ad hoc.
No, we don't.
Well, if there's an identified need, do we do it? It's
That I don't know.
education. It's education for, who's it educating? Competitors.
I think it's part of the concussion baseline process.
Yeah.
That's right.
It
Do
is
we,
done-
that's what I was gonna ask. Do we do baseline services?
Yes.
That's
So,
not
we
required,
get-
but it's
that's
We're
what
one
I'm-
of the first schools.
that's what I'm trying to say, is it's built
That's
into the
not it.
concussion
It
baseline
says
process.
pre-
and you need to do it
preseason
in order to
baseline
get-
assessment.
There, got it.
I hear you, but the kid, he didn't know he was gonna go out for baseball. And now he wants to go out for baseball. You're gonna tell him you can't go out for baseball because you're gonna get a baseline?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Well, but, okay, but so my question is, does
Oh,
it
do they
say,
let them?
No,
how do I
it's
go
your
to get,
opportunity.
how do I go to get it?
Right.
Because I wanna play baseball. How do I go to get
Here's the
it?
thing, we don't want them to, because if you had a concussion and
Switch
switch
to the
schools
next sport.
midterm.
Yeah.
And get a baseline on that, you skew, the baseline's not real if we aren't sure that the baseline's a baseline.
I'm not sure that a kid who hasn't played any sports all ninth grade decides to go out to baseball and he didn't have the baseline, they won't do it then.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm not convinced that doesn't happen.
That's-
I think we'd have complaints from people, I mean,
They
kids
will be.
change their mind all the time.
we have the software installed
Yes.
on the computers at the school.
Oh, we did?
They can't play the sport without getting.
That's what I keep
Right,
saying.
but they could get one right before
So
baseball
is the
season if they
distinction
missed
that you
it.
can do it at school on an annual basis?
They do it in August.
Every season.
because
No, I know
I-
it happens, but I'm saying, but that if somebody moved from California and is gonna play, then
They have to
they're
do it.
instructed to go to another
Yes.
location to do it.
No.
No, Mike does it at the school.
Oh, the trainers
We
will
have
do
Trainers
to-
do it,
but
yeah.
not as a,
Not as a group.
okay.
Okay, so let's review what this guideline is. The school district shall hold an informational meeting on an annual basis for all competitors regarding concussions and other head injuries. Discuss about, in addition to the student athletes and appropriate school officials. So we're advising. So we do that at the beginning of the year. It doesn't say, by the way, I'm not reading there that it is required anybody attends that.
No, I don't.
I just want to be clear.
They have to,
It doesn't say they have to attend it. This was the old bugaboo about you had to offer, you had to
they
offer
have to sign off that they have received and reviewed the concussion and traumatic brain injury.
information sheet, fine.
It's a broad list.
But that informational section
Broad
is
list
a
of-
requirement to attend.
Yes, it is very good.
It doesn't say it is there.
in the elementary.
No, but I think they do.
Middle school,
I think they do.
Yes.
It's absolutely required.
I'm just, I don't know from now, I'm just only reading what the policy says, that's what I'm, it doesn't say, does it say that high school starts?
It says we'll develop administrative
Second,
regulations
well,
to implement the policy.
Yeah, I think they
And
do
I
that.
think what you're
I've
asking
heard some
was,
camp notifications for ninth graders, but
I know that
haven't seen
Mike-
anything on-
is very adamant about having the software and the labs ready in time, and I know that he uses it during the year. Because we get updates.
But this is one of the best things we do. And we do it really, really well.
I don't
Somebody was
disagree.
gonna say that, but it's like, well, we're supposed to educate kids, that's what the best thing to be doing.
No, I'm saying,
The concussion management.
I don't disagree with
Exactly,
it,
I'm
I'm just concerned about excluding someone because they made a decision late.
yeah, I don't believe
Not a
that.
problem.
We would have heard.
Okay, I'll defer, so we're gonna go with this one as is,
He's a big check.
with the exception of, okay,
We're on the last one?
Yes, ma'am.
This is the last one. I was, sorry.
It's the only change you made is the same age change you just discussed.
we suspend.
Okay.
So, but the violation thing should be, the concussion one, yes?
So it's the same one, so I'll just double check.
And what is
That was a
the,
little more.
I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just trying to figure out how you know that the issue exists, that you're having that penalty. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, it's return to play.
Again, officially.
Until the student is evaluated and cleared.
All right. Yeah, it just sounds like sudden cardiac arrest would be kind of self-limiting.
So it's just gonna be the same two in that one, not three.
And we,
So I'll treat 123.2 the same as 123.1. Make
For
sure it's
penalties.
penalty, okay. And if it's okay, we'll move it to the June.
If it's not okay, you're gonna do 1, 2, and 3 as it is and still move it.
And move it to the board member, correct.
We want it to be more tight. If we're not allowed, then we're not allowed.
public well, we can do board comment, well, we'll do public comment first, then we can do board comment.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Public comment, again, we're still on mic, so anybody, if you have a public comment and you want to speak, all I ask is that you come up and you sit at one of the tables because the mics are on the table. Nobody public comment. Introduce yourself, please, with your name and the town you're from.
Say where I'm from?
Just the town.
We're
Originally, if you're far away, no. It's like, you know, where you know what I mean.
They wanted to know about like long walks down the parkway. My name is William Holmes. I live in Newtown Township. I have children that attend Newtown Elementary School. Got enough information.
More than I did.
And apparently I am that certain person that was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting by Mr. Jerry Grubb. But what is not understood is that I'm here speaking not for myself and not even just for my family. I'm speaking on behalf of the community and parents of Council Rock to enable voices to be heard that are often scared to speak or not noticed when they do speak. At the March Policy Committee meeting, Mr. Grubb stated that the non-discrimination, affirmative action, and transgender policies would come back for additional discussion at the April Policy Committee meeting. With little to no notice outside of the board, that meeting was canceled. We were told that these diversity-related policies would be on the agenda for the May 25th meeting today. Upon review of that agenda yesterday, again with no advance notice or communication, these harassment and bullying policies were pulled from the agenda again. After learning about this by reviewing the district website and inquiring about the reason for change, Dr. Frazier advised us that the topics would not be on the agenda because the policies were under legal review and the solicitor's review was delayed. Dr. Frazier said that the reviewed policies would be on the agenda in June. In an email this evening from Policy Committee lead Jerry Grubb, he stated that is for our recollection of the facts of that meeting, the previous meeting, and I quote, "While we took input from you, Mr. Weinstein, and other members of the council in attendance, we did not table the policies. There was no motion made, and therefore nothing was tabled. Whether a motion was made is really not the point." Mr. Grubb looked us in the eye and told us that the policies would be tabled for further discussion at the next Policy Committee meeting because there was clearly a lot more to discuss. We thought we could take him at his word. Apparently, we were mistaken. Mr. Grubb in his email goes on to quote Martin Luther King Jr.'s stance on fear amongst different groups and how that fear is based on a lack of communication. This is troubling since the only thing as a group we have done is communicate, meet, and have an open dialogue. As a matter of fact, we have spent more time on how this administration wants us to communicate with them and the constructs of how that should be and the feelings we should take into consideration when dealing with them versus actually dealing with our children's issues and addressing the children's feelings. Listen, it is easy to become emotional and defensive when discussing controversial topics. However, we must step back, manage our emotions, and put our children first. If our goals and aspirations during these months of communication are still not clear, The lack of any meaningful movement on these important policies suggests a lack of focus and determination on the part of the administration and certain members of the board in prioritizing the values of diversity and inclusion. We are here tonight to encourage the school board to direct a greater level of focus, attention, energy, and communication to the review of the non-discrimination and affirmative action policies and the prompt adoption of a meaningful transgender policy. Let's stop being in denial that there is a problem that exists in Council Rock School District. Instead, let's take ownership and admit there has been a history of systemic harassment, bullying, and racism. Then the next step is to move forward with specific goals and action to fix them. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
My name is Margaret Jung, and I am a student at Council Rock North High School. And I had a question about, it was considering the student wellness policy. But like considering the nutrition standard, nutrition standards and guidelines concerning the food served in the cafeterias. I've noticed that the food served in the cafeteria, at least at my school, it's North, is not quite. I mean, like my judgment, at least, is not really satisfactory. Like considering like health wise, a lot of students will buy like sugary snack foods or buy a cookie each time, like the quite large cookies actually. And there doesn't seem to be so much of an emphasis on picking like the right, like on picking nutritious foods and having a balanced diet. I mean, I know that this is mentioned in health classes, but one thing, well, like in high school, health classes only occurs in 10th grade, and then there aren't really like any directed opportunities for like applying what the information we learned in health class to like choosing foods we eat. So I suppose I'm wondering how, what is possible for like how we can improve like the availability of like the more healthy foods for students, like say during lunch. I know that we work with like a separate company. I think it's maybe Chart 12. And then maybe they have a lot of decision-making power. But what can we do? Yeah.
One of the things is, as Matt leaned forward to me and reminded me, is that as we assemble the wellness committee, there's a requirement to have a student representative. So one of the things you can do, you may have already just done, is to volunteer. So from that perspective, this policy sets out, it's actually a requirement that we have this by state law. We're required to have this policy. It sets out some high-level principles around it. How we effectuate that becomes a different topic. We just approved continued the school price lunching. Whoa, talk much. The price for school lunches. That's part of one of the features that has to happen as well. If you think that what we're doing is not encouraging or appropriately strong enough around student wellness or education, one, you can do what you're doing now. You can talk to the board about how to change that, or we're open to suggestions. Not necessarily just the policy committee, but in general. And the second thing is you can also take a role or asked to have a role in the Wellness Committee, which will be, I'm looking to Dr. Frazier.
Deciding. He's deciding.
We're, Ed, you and Dr. Frazier are looking to appoint members to be on that.
I just sent an email earlier asking for volunteers, so.
What year are you this year?
I'm a sophomore.
Okay. Mrs. McCarthy got a request from us to name a student that could be on the committee. So if you would go to Mrs. McCarthy and tell her you're interested, we can make sure you're on that committee. We're also going to have the health and PE teachers there, so they can also address what you're talking about, the training part of it, and how do we teach children to make better choices. Okay? So if you would just let Mrs. McCarthy know you're interested, I bet you she'd accept you as her representative. Okay?
That sounds
And it's valuable feedback, Margaret. Thank you.
good.
Thanks
It's
for volunteering.
probably not very popular feedback, like from like amongst other students who who like
I
to
think-
choose.
I think
that's
been
that's the
part of
been
part of
our
the
problem
challenge
is
is we
supplying
make the right choice.
healthy foods
Not
and having it
necessarily
go
offer.
bad. Nobody buys it.
But could we change the offer to help them with it?
So
That's the challenge.
you'll hear lots more.
All right, well, thank you.
Further public comment?
Thank you.
From a board comment perspective, my note to Mr. Holmes was in reference to the fact that he had sent a memo to a group of people to inform them that they should come to this meeting. And my commentary really focused on that prior to the last meeting, I had been contacted by Mr. Weinstein, and I would have welcomed the conversation again if someone had reached out to ask me, where is it, what is it? In terms of taking me at my word, we had intended to hold it at the April meeting. The April meeting was canceled because one of these policies were not done, and the other diversity policies were still being reviewed by council. And the council has been away, I believe. Joanne has been away.
Joanne Summer has been
And was
away.
not available tonight. So we are working to have those policies brought forward. Regarding the specific requirements around the transgender policy, looking at what PSBA has recommended in that space and what is also being recommended by someone in another school district who has actually had come to the county, had come to the IU and spoken on that. There is a divergent opinion about whether to implement a transgender policy or not. I know my own personal opinion around it. In terms of whether it is appropriate to, or beneficial to the students to have a transgender policy or not. I'm open to the discussion, but again, I wanted to have that discussion in context with the other policies that were in that realm and in that sphere. That's where we are with it. Please take the displeasure with me. The memo I send as my own. The other members of the committee may or may not agree with my position, and they're welcome to differ with it as they wish. But my intent really was, I would have welcomed the opportunity to discuss it individually with somebody if they had asked me why it was not on, rather than the allusions that were in that memo to the Google group of the Diversity and Inclusion Council that seemed to make allegations that again were repeated this evening. So I'm glad to discuss it individually, again, as one of 9 board members. But that it wasn't here tonight is really an administrative challenge of getting the attorney to review it and be present for that review. Other board comments?
Just a question about that. Do we need do we need the solicitor to be here as we discuss those policies versus review consent?
We wanted the solicitor to review them because we had gone through them. They're not as simple. If you.
No, I understand that part. My question was, does the solicitor need to be in the room as we finalize?
I think we'll see. We just did 103 this past summer, if you recall, and Joanne Summer was present when we redid 103 in particular. So she's been away for an extended period of time, just came back earlier this week or last week. So she simply has not had time to review these policies. I'm anxious to see what her feedback is on these particular policies, and I'll let her make that decision.
Yeah, so the reason I asked the question was, I don't want to be beholden to her schedule, so if she doesn't need to be here, will it be at the next meeting? Assuming she can review them, and if she has to be here, but she can't make our meeting date, can we be flexible enough to move the date to accommodate your schedule just to make sure we get?
If she can't make it to the next meeting, but someone else from the firm will be able to be physically present. With that won't impact the timing of the review. But her personal review of those policies is critical because she's literally the one who authored the.
Yeah, no, I get that. I
policy.
want to make sure that we're not the hold up because of our monthly.
Yep.
schedule.
The next meeting is scheduled now for June 22nd. I'll advise the board now that I am in Chicago and returning that day. So I don't know if I will be here for the meeting, so someone else may have to chair that. Say, hey, you're not available for that meeting either? You're on vacation. That's June 22nd, so we're all backed up because I'm just working through the calendar in my mind.
Yeah.
We have a number of meetings the week of June 6th, June 5th, 6th, 7th, and then we have two meetings, and 8, and then we have meetings on June
12 to
12 and
12.
15.
and 15th.
We
because we have
graduation on the
on the middle day there.
13, yeah. So I pushed my travel to the end of the month.
So you,
It's worth the pay.
What?
Yeah. We don't have that many meetings.
so, yeah, some people have fewer. So I don't, June 22nd, I don't care if it was June 29th, if that works, I would, are you awake June 29th as well then?
I am, yes.
You are,
I
yes.
fly out of the country June 29th.
Okay.
So I'm gone for a few weeks. Don't do
So it can either
it.
be June 22nd, and I don't have to be here for it, that's fine. Or you can, we'll take the will of the board, so whatever you guys want to do.
Maybe we just offline try and gather schedules to where we get the best participation. It's not, so I'm not gonna be around that day either.
And to be honest, given the notice that it's in public information, which is, we're also going to be potentially in the mode to be interviewing candidates for the board sometime in that period as well, potentially. And we're also in the middle of finalizing the budget. So there's a
The
lot.
budget will
going
be
on.
done. Budget will be done the 15th.
15,
Yeah.
after the presentation, right.
I just want to make sure as soon as we hear back from the solicitor that we can get to this with some pace. And again, not have our schedule hold it up.
I'm fine with that, so. That's it?
Mr. Tate, I have an affinity for cookies, so I'm not going to be on your wellness committee.
So the seat is still open.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wellness committee.
We're good? Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.